Good evening, friends, fiends, and night owl supremes. Welcome to A Bit Late. Tonight, I have a favorite, or one of a favorite of mine, the Glass Mountain. And this one is actually a different version than the one I know and love, but I'm sure it's good. Yeah? Well, regardless, we're going to read it together, so gather around you blankets, summon animal familiars, and make a cup of tea or hot chocolate, whatever you need for tonight's story. The Glass Mountain. Once upon a time, there was a glass mountain at the top of which stood a castle made of pure gold, and in front of the castle there grew an apple tree on which there were golden apples. Delicious. Were they golden delicious? Anyone who picked an apple gained admittance into the golden castle, and there in a silver room sat an enchanted princess of surpassing fairness and beauty. She was as rich too as she was beautiful, for the cellars of the castle were full of precious stones, and great chests of the finest gold stood round the walls of all the rooms. It's quite a lot of treasure. It's like a mountain of treasure. Treasure Mountain. That was a good game. Anyway, many knights had come from afar to try their luck, but it was in vain they attempted to climb the mountain. In spite of having their horses shod with sharp nails, no one managed to get more than halfway up. And then they fell all back right down to the bottom of the steep, slippery hill. Sometimes they broke an arm, sometimes a leg, and many a brave man had even broken his neck. No, thank you. The beautiful princess sat at her window and watched the bold knights trying to reach her on their splendid horses. Wouldn't a donkey be better on a mountain, though? Regardless, the sight of her always gave the men fresh courage, and they flocked from the 4 quarters of the globe to attempt the work of rescuing her. But in vain, and for 7 years the princess had now sat and waited for someone to scale the Glass Mountain. I wonder how she got there. Was she born there? Is she just the princess of the mountain who owns all these riches that she can't spend in the real world because she's in a mountain? Does she want to be rescued? Always the questions you have to ask when reading fairy tales. Or you don't have to ask, because I will. Sorry. A heap of corpses, both of riders and horses, lay round the mountain, and many dying men lay groaning there, unable to go further with their wounded limbs. This is a grisly scene, and they must be dying for a long time. Are they all started at once, and it's just chaos? The whole neighborhood had the appearance of a vast churchyard. In 3 more days, the 7 years would be at an end, when a knight in golden armor and mounted on a spirited steed was seen making his way towards the fatal hill. Dun dun dun. Sticking his spurs into his horse, he made a rush at the mountain and got halfway up. Then he calmly turned his horse's head and came down again without a slip or a stumble. The following day he started in the same way. The horse trode on the glass as if it had been level earth, and sparks of fire flew from his hooves. All the other knights gazed in astonishment, for he had almost gained the summit, and in another moment he would have reached the apple tree. But of a sudden, huge eagle rose up and spread its mighty wings, hitting as it did so the knight's horse in the eye. Oh, poor little horse. The beast shied, opened wide its nostrils, and tossed its mane. Then, rearing high in the air, its hind feet slipped and it fell with its rider down the steep mountainside. Nothing was left of either them except their bones, which rattled in the battered golden armor like dry peas in a pod. That decomp happened fast. Very fast. Or maybe there's a trick in the air in the high altitude, I don't know. And now there was only 1 more day until the close of the 7 years. Then there arrived on the scene a mere schoolboy, a merry, happy-hearted youth, but at the same time strong and well-grown. He saw how many knights had broken their necks in vain, but undaunted he approached the steep mountain on foot and began the ascent. For long he had heard his parents speak of the beautiful princess who sat in the golden castle atop the Glass Mountain. He listened to all he heard and determined that he too would try his luck. But first he went to the forest and caught a lynx, and cutting up the creature's sharp claws, he fastened them to his own hands and feet. Oh, poor lynx. I hope it's just the claws like when you trim your cat's claws. Not, oh no, I don't like this. I mean, points for ingenuity, but it's a little grisly. Armed with these weapons, he boldly started up the mountain. The sun was nearly going down, and the youth had not got up more than halfway. He could hardly draw breath, he was so worn out, and his mouth was parched by thirst. A huge black cloud passed over his head, but in vain did he beg and beseech her to let a drop of water fall on him. He opened his mouth, but the black cloud sailed past, and not as much as a drop of dew moistened his dry lips. His feet were torn and bleeding, and he could only hold on now with his hands. Evening closed in, and he strained his eyes to see if he could behold the top of the mountain. Then he gazed beneath him, and what a sight met his eyes! A yawning abyss with certain and terrible death at the bottom, reeking with half-decayed bodies of horses and riders. And this had been the end of all the other brave men who, like himself, had attempted the ascent. It was almost pitch dark now, and only the stars lit up the glass mountain. The poor boy still clung on as if glued to the glass by his blood-stained hands. He made no struggle to get higher, for all his strength had left him, and seeing no hope, he calmly awaited death. Then, all of a sudden, he fell into a deep sleep, and, forgetful of his dangerous position, he slumbered sweetly. Quite forgetful of his dangerous and precarious position, quite indeed. But I'm glad he had a sweet sleep. But all the same, although he slept, he had struck his sharp claws so firmly into the glass that he was quite safe now not to fall. Now the golden apple tree was guarded by the eagle which had overthrown the golden knight and his horse, who, because he was dressed in gold, I would have assumed he would have been successful, but that is not the way with fairy tales. It's always the little tailor or the schoolboy, I guess, or the king's son. Ta-da! I don't think that's how it is in this one. But we're talking about the eagle. Every night it flew round the glass mountain, keeping a careful lookout, and no sooner had the moon emerged from the clouds than the bird rose up from the apple tree and, circling round in the air, caught sight of the sleeping youth. Dun, dun, dun. Greedy for carrion and sure that this must be a fresh corpse, the bird swooped down upon the boy. But he was awake now, and perceiving the eagle, he determined by its help to save himself. Ingenious. The eagle dug its sharp claws into the tender flesh of the youth, but he bore the pain without a sound and seized the bird's 2 feet with his hands. The creature in terror lifted him high up into the air and began to circle round the tower of the castle. The youth held on bravely. He saw the glittering palace, which by the pale rays of the moon looked like a dim lamp, and he saw the high windows, and round one of them a balcony in which the beautiful princess sat lost in sad thoughts. Wait, she wasn't looking for him? I thought she always looked out at the knights or people trying to come to her, but she doesn't really care for him? She's not looking for him, she's just sad. Because it's the last day? And then she's free? Or something worse? But back to the boy. Then the boy saw that he was close to the apple tree, and drawing a small knife from his belt, he cut off both the eagle's feet. And this is not a Grimm's story, surprisingly enough. It's from Poland. The bird rose up in the air in its agony and vanished into the clouds, and the youth fell onto the broad branches of the apple tree. Then he drew out the claws of the eagle's feet that had remained in his flesh and put the peel of one of the golden apples on the wound, and in one moment it was healed and well again. That's a nice band-aid. He pulled several of the beautiful apples and put them in his pocket. Then he entered the castle. The door was guarded by a great dragon, but as soon as he threw an apple at it, the beast vanished. I guess no one got far enough to know that there was a dragon guarding it. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. I would want to be prepared for that, but I guess this kid was. At the same moment, a gate opened, and the youth perceived a courtyard full of flowers and beautiful trees, and on a balcony sat the lovely enchanted princess with her retinue. As soon as she saw the youth, she ran towards him and greeted him as her husband and master. Oh boy. She gave him all her treasures. Oh boy. And the youth became a rich and mighty ruler. But he never returned to the earth, for only the mighty eagle, who had been the guardian of the princess in the castle, could have carried on his wings the enormous treasure down to the world. But as the eagle had lost its feet, it died, and its body was found in a wood on the glass mountain. So this kid becomes king of the mountain. Such riches he has now, but he cannot use them. They're in a mountain. He can't go back to Earth. What is he spending them on? He's just hoarding them like a dragon on the mountain? They're just not useful. What do you need gold for if you're just sitting in a mountain? I mean, apples would be good and key because you need to eat on a mountain, but oh boy, maybe they can teleport elsewhere. But not to Earth because it says he doesn't go to Earth. They don't teleport. The eagle was the only means of transportation, and the eagles aren't coming. Anyway, one day when the youth was strolling about the palace garden with the princess, his wife, he looked down over the edge of the glass mountain and saw, to his astonishment, a great number of people gathered there. He blew his silver whistle, and the swallow who acted as a messenger in the golden castle flew past. "Fly down and ask what the matter is," he said to the little bird, who sped off like lightning and soon returned, saying, "The blood of the eagle has restored all the people below to life. All those who have perished on this mountain are awakening up today, as it were from a sleep, and are mounting their horses, and the whole population are gazing on this unheard of wonder with joy and amazement." The end. Wow, dear friends and fiends. So everyone who died in pursuit of rescuing the princess is now restored to life. It has been said that they broke arms and legs and they're just waking up from a sleep, so there's still broken arms and legs. And the people that broke necks are waking up too. It doesn't say they're restored. And my heart goes out to the Golden Knight and his horse who were naught but bones. This is so creepy. I love it. Oh my god. So we got a bunch of zombies with like limbs akimbo and askew walking around the mountain, just waking up. This is not pretty. Not pretty at all. And if they couldn't get up the mountain while they were alive in the best shape of their lives, anybody except for this kid, how did they get up there now? I mean, the mountain is still glass. It just didn't get stairways all of a sudden. I don't know. Welcome to Overthinking Fairy Tales, as per usual. But that was an interesting story, and I definitely enjoyed reading it. It's different than the one I know, but I enjoyed it regardless. Now, off to sleep and dream what you will, or stay a while and enjoy another tale. Whichever you choose, I'll speak to you again. And until then, stay spooky, my friends. Good night.